Good morning. Home again. um, I wish to spend a few moments here talking about the Afghan war documents again. Um, it's my heater in the background. I don't know if that's real loud or not. There are some people out here who would basically put the idea out that the real tragedy here is a waste of money. And the $1 trillion wasted. Some people would sit here and they'd speak about the money. All this money was wasted. That isn't the point that I wanted to present. It isn't the point that I think I put out in my earlier previous video when I was in Boom. I guess the point I want to make, or I've been making, is the fact that two things. A, you really can't trust the West. And B, you can't trust their press, their politics. Excuse me, the press that is bringing out the information to you. You can't trust them. Do you know why? You ain't heard nothing about it, have you? Who have you heard? Who have you heard in the mainstream media talking about the Afghan war documents? Nobody. That's why I always tell people, I don't trust any Western media. I don't trust none. I don't trust any Western media. People think, oh, no, my dad was just having this conversation when I was up in Boone before this stuff happened. He's like, oh, you shouldn't be like that. You're going to anti-American sources to get information. And then the Afghan war documents come out from the Washington Post, and nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about it. You know, that's why they're not to be trusted. Sometimes I'm a really good guy, man, and sometimes I think to myself that I'm being too hostile, or I'm being too negative, or that, isn't that serious? People like this show me it's worse than I think. It's worse than I say. Way worse. Way worse. The Afghan war documents. What else? Another thing I'm thinking about. A lot of other things. Oh, the money. All these countries moving away from the dollar. The yellow vest. We can talk for 10, 20 minutes just about things the American media doesn't report on. I think it's important that Trump did his pull away from the Iran deal, and he told everybody else he do it. Nobody else did it. A lot of the Europeans are still doing business. The Chinese, they're like, nah, we made a deal with the UN. No, we're not gonna do that. And so then Trump, because I know what this was. Trump did that to get respect. Because Trump believes that you've got to use sharp lines, you've got to be cutting, and you got to be tough, and you got to talk big, be the big man on campus, and that's what Trump is. The big guy, big swole guy in his mind. And if he had respect from the rest of the world, maybe that would work. I wouldn't do it, but maybe that would work. Got no respect. So Trump started putting tariffs on people. Trump started doing all this stuff that further, he divided America when he got elected. Now he's dividing the world by his tariffs and shit like that. So even Putin came out and spoke against that. That's why your farmers are getting hurt. That's why these corporations are closing up. And that's also hurting the trucking industry. All these crackers out here that love Trump, I want you to understand, it was the tariffs that had a hand in you losing your jobs. Yes, he didn't bring back factories. He made your lifestyle and he made your workplace more untenable. I said it like that. He made your environment more unstable. If that makes sense. Now, Trump's talked about. He's talked about, how they'll try to stake everything you have if you try to work with Iran. There's 7 European countries that are working with Iran right now. The Netherlands are one. I think Denmark. I was shocked. These are big names. I was shocked. I was like, what? You know. I think that's the only. I think that's only the beginning. That's how I think. I think that's only the beginning of that. It's only the beginning of people getting really frustrated with his type of rhetoric. But going back to the main point I was making, these Afghan documents, they just prove you can't trust this government. And I spoke on this before. I've said this before to you guys. What Snowden did, what Assange did, could be considered wrong if we lived in a just system, which we do not. The Afghan war documents prove, and it also proves the point I often make to you guys. A lot of the things that we take for granted now have been leaked. MK Ultra, all that aluminum barium spraying they were doing back in the day in California and South Carolina and stuff. Was it? What's another one I'm thinking about? The Pentagon Papers in Vietnam. There's been a lot of secrets of this country doing things against its own people. Even back in the day, I don't know if people think things were better back then, because they were really spraying stuff and spraying stuff in the subways and crap. Did a lot of that stuff back in the day. Oh yeah, a lot of that shit, and they're known for that. What's another one? Like I said, I just make the point, you can't trust Western propaganda. You can't. And I watch MSNBC. When I was going to work for Boone, I listened to MSNBC in the morning sometimes because I was rushing. See, I'm home now, so I can really kind of marinate in certain things. But when you're getting every morning going to work, you don't really have time. So I was watching a little Western MSNBC news. That's it. No, that's it. I'm not going to go no further on it. I'm just making the point that you can't trust Western propaganda. And then the fact I wanted to make was the fact that they lied to us. It seems like in America, people talk about the crime and all this stuff and how the crimes went. We don't talk about the fact that multiple administrations lied. All these generals lied. Not just to me, not just to the average person, but to the soldiers. Believing, yeah, the war is winning. We're winning the war. And they're putting their boots on to go and die. In some place most Americans probably can't even pronounce, much less find on the map. And for what? Dying for what? That's what I read in those documents. Is that we've entered a whole... So when they talk about all these protests and stuff, I think that's because at one time people somewhat... Clarify. Charlotte's not really got a history of protests. Even back during the Jim Crow and all that, they didn't have that history. That it wasn't like certain other cities that were really bad. It just wasn't. It wasn't the same. And those how we say it. You know, since you had those protests in Charlotte with Occupy, it's like Charlotte become really, really political. DSA here in Charlotte, and I'm not involved. I'm not in part of that. But you have a lot of things like that going on. I've heard people say, well, Charlotte's not really political. I think that's because, not saying we didn't have to, I think it's because they at least kind of did a pretense of legitimacy. And I think that when you have a system, you have an empire collapsing the way the one in America is, things are becoming more dangerous. We're stagnating. You know what I mean? And what happens over in Ohio or something like that can eventually be a harbinger for something that happens here in Charlotte. These tariffs hurt everybody. The other things Trump's doing hurts everybody. It ain't hurt you yet. But as a socialist, this whole Afghan war document is another example to me of how you can't trust this man. You can't trust his news. Period, man. You just can't. Even when they admit to screwing you, to raping you, you still don't know about it. Peace, y'all.